Welcome to Creatrix with Jade. I am back today with a conversation where I'm going to be sharing with you 10 of my favorite somatic and energetic tips around how you can really cultivate your creative life force energy and essentially become more creative. Now, there are a lot of different perspectives and ways to think about creativity and look at creativity and understand what creativity means. There's the neurological perspective, there's the physiological perspective, there is, of course, the spiritual perspective and energetic perspective, and professional perspective as well. And today I'm really going to be focusing on what creativity actually is energetically and how we can use the body and how we can use different somatic practices as well as energy hygiene, energy protection, and spiritual concepts to really enliven that creative energy inside of us. But before we dive into that, I do want to just give a little bit of an explanation of what, in my world, what we really see creativity as and how we work with it. So, creativity is really just life force energy, it is vitality, it is the energy, the energy inside of us that is very much tied to the energy of birth, right? To the existence of the fact that we are all here. So if you think about creative energy, creativity, it is simply the practice and the process and the state, the energy of creation. And everything in our world, everything that we exist in, everything that we have in our material physical realm, like the buildings that we live in and the technology that we have all been products of creativity, human creativity. And so, what I want us to first understand is that creativity is not something that we have to find. It's not something that we have to seek outside of us. It's not something that we even learn. It's something that is innately built inside of our energetic capacity. It is simply our life force energy. And what I find is that when we are disconnected from our creativity, when we are disconnected from our capacity to create, we're also disconnected from our sensuality. We're also disconnected from our sense of like well-being. We're disconnected from our sense of fulfillment. We're also disconnected from the energy of excitement and possibility and magic and the purity of our life. And most likely, you're also probably disconnected from authentic, real, deep, embodied, authentic self expression. And why is that? Because, like I said, creativity is your life force energy, right? So if you're disconnected from creativity, you're going to be disconnected from all of those states, all of those natural magnetic frequencies that make you the creator of your life, that make you and make every single one of us actually artists in many ways. We're all creating our lives every day. We're all making decisions. We're all really here to paint. I always say, like, paint the masterpiece that we're here to create. Like, we're all just artists here creating the masterpiece of our reality. And one thing I want to just really quickly touch on before we dive into the 10 tips that I have for you is, um, if you are someone who is coming into this episode here, coming into this video, thinking about, how maybe once upon a time you were told that you weren't creative, right? Or you never felt like you were a creative kid growing up. Maybe you weren't quote unquote good at art, right? Maybe you got a C in art class and music class, but you were really good at math. And so you've always just thought of yourself as a very logical person, and you've thought of yourself as someone who didn't need creativity. This is the first bridge I want us to really, really like understand today, is that, as I said, creativity is something that is innately built inside of every single one of us. And we can see this in children, right? Like all of us as very, very young children, we knew how to pick up a stick and draw a line before we knew how to write, right? And we all knew how to make a sound and sing to a tone, even if we didn't know we were singing at the time. But like we all knew how to make sounds and make playful sounds, laugh, before we knew how to speak, right? And that is creative expression. That is simply what creative expression is. creativity is. It's the play, it's the innovation, it's the joy, it's the energy of newness that is always being regenerated in our universe, in our lives, in our bodies every single day that we're alive. And so, yeah, I want to just start with that, like us understanding that creativity is something that belongs to all of us. It's something that is, I always see it as like a universe, God given gift from the cosmos, right? Like when we are tapped into our creativity, we are tapping into forces of nature. We're tapping into higher consciousness, right? We are tapping into possibility that we're bringing down into form and reality through the art that we make and the projects that we deliver and the decisions that we take and the stuff that we do, right? That is all a product of original revolutionary thinking, being outside of the box. And what drives that force is the creative life force energy that is tapped into the universe. So creativity is divine. Creativity is born into every single one of us. And it's not something that we have to earn or learn, and it's not a skill. So these tips that I'm giving you today, 10 tips, are really actually not tips for you to learn anything. They're tips for you to come home, to come home to a remembrance of presence, a remembrance of mind body connection, a remembrance of what your heart wants to say, and a remembrance of how energy is actually meant to flow through you as a human being. So let's dive into it. Number one, to how to become more creative. Number one, get out of your mind and into the body. So we spend so much of our modern day contemporary lives being in our minds. It's what society tells us most things are built from. It's where our nervous system, if we're in a fight or flight response, if we're activated, if we're overstimulated or stressed, our mind, our ego is the part of us that takes over and wants control. And so most of us on this planet right now are to some degree probably overstimulated, and our nervous systems, our bodies aren't wired for the amount of stuff that we're constantly consuming and filtering through our minds. And so we have become a culture that lives very heavily in the logic, lives very heavily in the control, lives very heavily in like the analysis and the calculation and the doing and the action. And while that isn't bad, right? While that is necessary, our minds are brilliant, and logic is necessary, calculation is necessary. Creativity doesn't live in the analysis. Creativity doesn't live in the things that you can prove. Creativity doesn't live in the empirical, right? Creativity doesn't live in the mind. Creativity actually starts from the body. It starts from your sacral chakra, your energy center, where creativity, fertility, sensuality, if you're a woman, like the energy of birth, like your womb is literally in your sacral. Creativity is a life force that starts in your womb. It starts in your sacral chakra. And so when we're constantly, our energy is all up in the mind, creativity, while creativity is very much an energy that, yes, we have to filter through our minds in order to create, we have to ground back into connection with our body and with a sense of presence and with spaciousness. And my favorite ways to get out of the mind, come into the body, there are so many, but somatic practices, right? Like gentle, if you're new to mind body work, I would say like somatic practices. I share an abundance of them on my channel. You can check them out, all different like dimensions and like types of somatic work, but really with the intention, doing somatic exercises with the intention of grounding back into your body, with the intention of connecting back into your breath. Right? Mindfulness as well, right? Practicing mindfulness, practicing meditation. There are different types of meditation. You can explore what really sits well with your energy and what sits well with where you're at with your nervous system. Now, really know, as we begin this conversation, when it comes to developing that mind body connection and when it comes to getting out of the mind, this is a practice that takes time. Again, we live in a world that is very, very overstimulated. A lot of us have a lot of like armoring that makes us really tense and makes us like just be on in our minds all the time. And so it is a muscle that we have to build to be able to observe, oh, I'm doing that thing where I'm up in the mind again and I'm trying to like control and analyze everything. And I know that that isn't creating space for thrival, for creation, for magic, for the in between, which is where creativity lies. It's not allowing for space for that. So, how can I just take a breath, come back into the body, come back into my sensations, come back into how I'm feeling in this present moment, and mindfully letting those thoughts go. So, explore your own practices with what gets you out of the mind and into the body. But that I would say is my first tip. Now, the second tip that I have is move your body intuitively. So once we've attuned, once we've attuned to the body, we've come out of the mind, we are able to ground into the body. It's important to move and to let the energy, the energy flow inside of us to have spaciousness and have direction to flow, right? Because as humans, we are actually just regenerative, energetic beings. And our creative channel, right? If we think about creativity as energy that is flowed from a higher consciousness, that is flowed from the universe, right? That is flowed from big magic, as Elizabeth Gilbert likes to call it in her book. Amazing book, by the way. Definitely check it out if you haven't. But how big magic flows through us is from up there, right, from the big into our bodies, and there is a channel through which that energy flows, right? It's through the chakras, essentially, you can imagine. So if we are sitting and contracted and tense and like up in the mind all the time, that channel is going to be siphoned and contracted. And so moving your body is good. We all know this. Physical exercise, just really good for your vitality, right? And vitality is creativity. So when we move in our vitality, it moves our creativity. But more than just movement, right? Moving intuitively. So listening to what your body is actually telling you need in terms of movement, in terms of rest between movement, and the kind of movement that you're doing, right? And I'm not just talking about exercise, I am talking about exercise, um, running, swimming, walking, whatever floats your boat, whatever you feel like your body is asking for, doing that, dancing, stretching, right? What are ways that you can actually tune in to what your body is needing, especially when you're feeling stuck or blocked, right? And this can literally be as simple as you take a pause in your day, hand on your body, one hand on your heart, one hand on your womb or your tummy, and you literally just ask yourself, what would I need? What would my body need to feel open? Because we want the channel to be open, right? So what would I need for my body to feel open? What does she need right now? And then you go offer yourself that, right? And yeah, like releasing that energy that's pent up and contracted in whatever way that you're feeling called to, that is going to open up so much mental space, right? Because that's going to ground you into the body, that's going to get you into your senses, which also is what actually neurologically, like being present with our senses activates certain neural circuits in our brain that enhances creativity. And so when you're in your senses and you're opening up your mental space, you're not stuck in the mind, stuck in stories, and you're letting space and energy just flow through you. That is what is going to clear your channel, right? And so if you're feeling blocked, if you're, let's say you've been on a creative project for a long time and you've been pushing at the wheel and like the solution isn't coming and you're just feeling so blocked or drained. Oh my God, these two first tips, please start there. Okay. Get out of the mind and move your body intuitively, really listening to whatever it is that it's asking for. right? And really know that creativity, I've said this already, but creativity is life force energy, and it manifests, yes, as ideas, right? We think of creativity as art, as ideation, as the spark, as the inspiration, but that is hand in hand with the the energy of vitality, the spark of vitality that moves through our bodies first, right? And it's that connection between the body, the mind, and the spirit that is going to actually formulate and alchemize into what we call a creative idea, right? It's bringing your unique energetic wisdom, your energetic body, your emotions, your knowing, your wisdom. It's combining that with higher consciousness, right? And through this channel that is your body. So that's number 2. Now, number 3, cultivate a what I call a nothingness practice. So this goes along with number 2 as well, right? Once we've grounded in and we're in our bodies, we realize that spaciousness is our natural state of being. And spaciousness is where everything is actually born, right? How can we expect creativity, creative ideas, creative energy to come to us if we are constantly filled up and overstimulated and there's just no space, time, energy in our bandwidth to hold it, right? And so cultivating a nothingness practice where you are just in the present state of nothingness will give your mind, your body, and your energy a reset. And it will create that space for the downloads to come through. So, my favorite nothingness practices are meditation, breath work, where you're literally just focusing on the space of your breath, chanting, right? Where you're anchored into a chant and you're using your voice, but you're basically kind of centered into this point. At some point when you're chanting, you kind of realize that you're just in an automatic flow and you don't even really know what you're chanting anymore. If you've chanted before, you know what I'm talking about. And what that is actually creative flow, right? We often think of creative flow as this big thing where it's like it needs to be like, like a masterpiece that I'm creating and I'm like in the creative flow, and it can be as simple as like the flow of life force through you. And so the nothingness space is basically the space of like all creation was first created from nothing, right? It was all, everything that is form was once first a formless form. And so when we are in nothingness, this allows for creation to actually form from that place of the 0 point. So the tips I gave were, yeah, meditation, breath work, chanting. Honestly, sometimes I love to just lie on my rug. I get really grounded on my rug. It's one of my favorite places to be. And I just look up at the ceiling and I just let myself be in complete nothingness. Like I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anything. I am just existing here. Right. And this is also like, this takes practice and cultivation to be able to feel like you can be in nothingness without fidgeting and without your mind wandering and going to a lot of places. It takes discipline. And I'm not saying that I have a beautiful nothingness practice, but I can't say that I can lie on my rug for, 2 hours and actually be in nothingness. Eventually, when you are in nothingness, things come in. That's the point, right? That's the creative flow. So other examples that I have would be, going outside, going for a walk, letting your mind completely clear out, and, just lying with the trees, sitting under a tree, just absorbing the beautiful force of nature and allowing yourself to be one with it, right? To be one is also to be nothing. um, and I also love taking a bath and letting the water just hold you and just being in that space of like, I love like turning off all my lights in the bathroom and maybe lighting one candle and just being in that space of like the void. It's so there's something very powerful energetically that happens when you offer yourself that, right? So that is number 3. Number 4, let's talk about activating the throat chakra. So our sacral chakra is where creativity lives, and that lives kind of in that navel area if you're a woman, in your womb space. That is where the creative energy that we have is regenerated. But energy that moves up the chakras and moves up our energy centers, well, there's a process of it needing to leave the body, right? So all creative energy, all life force has a giving and receiving dynamic to it. And so all creative energy needs to be expressed. And how it's expressed is through the throat chakra. So, ways to activate the throat chakra, ways to activate your creative self expression, right? Because it's one thing to, yes, be living in your vitality, but when you are in your vitality, in your creativity, you will naturally start to notice that, like, the way that like your energy just feels more authentic. It starts to feel bigger. You kind of want to use your voice more. You start to want to dress differently. And why that happens, the more we tap into our creativity, the more we feel like bold and fun and playful. It's because it's bringing us back into our authentic self expression. And that's a huge part of what it means to become more creative, right? It's to become more embodied in who you are as a creative being, right? How to live your life creatively. This happens through expression, right? It's not just all in the mind, it's expression. So, my favorite ways to activate the throat chakra is to sing. I love to intuitively sing. I also love to sing with music. Sometimes I just have my own karaoke party at home. You could also like literally go to karaoke with friends. Kirtan is something that I have gotten really into over the past 2 months or so. I was introduced to my first kirtan teacher a couple months ago at a workshop, and it has completely changed my life and it has changed my like vocal activation throat chakra life, and I love it. And so if you have, you know, kirtan practices that you can go to in real life, highly recommend. And you can also just look up kirtan on YouTube and follow along a video. I'm sure they have those. And basically, that's a devotional prayer. It's a way of singing in devotional prayer in yogic practice. So, highly recommend kirtan. Also, just humming, right? I hum to myself, I hum from my heart, I hum through my throat. And I do this from a place of groundedness and embodiment. And to be honest, actually tuning into your throat chakra and doing these practices of vocal expression is a beautiful way to get out of your mind as well. So, if you know you're looking for a playful way to get into your body, singing, humming, chanting, really, really good. I also really recommend making sounds, screaming. Like if you feel like you have a lot of energy that gets locked up in your jaw or in your throat, those of us who maybe have a history or have a pattern of repressing our expression or repressing our emotions, there is probably going to be a lot of stuff that's stored in your jaw and in your throat. It definitely was the case for me for a very long time, and I'm still very much in the process of peeling back a lot of those layers. A lot of it is also ancestral and generational and karmic, and so a lot of light workers on this planet have a lot of stuff in the throat. Um, and so important to do that energetic work of releasing what's in the throat. And like I mentioned, yeah, if you tune into your body, right? If you do a somatic practice and you tune into your body, or maybe you're, you know, moving through a wave of emotion, you're going through something and you're feeling an emotion, and there's a desire to use your voice to groan or to moan or to scream or to yell in some way, please do it, right? If you're in a breathwork practice and you feel a need to exhale loudly, please do it. That is a part of the energy that's being moved out of your throat chakra. And the more we can get comfortable with using our voice, the more comfortable we will also energetically become with loosening up our creative self expression. And authentically sharing our creative expression, which is, like I said, a big part of what it means to become more creative. So that's number 4. Number 5 is to let go of perfectionism. So this is coming from a recovered recovered severe people pleaser and perfectionist. And when I say let go of your perfectionism, I really mean it in all senses of the word and in all areas of your life, right? So if you notice, if you know that you tend to have perfectionistic tendencies where you grip onto things, where you second guess yourself, and where you keep refining and doing things hoping to achieve perfection at some point, and it's very hard for you to let go and trust um, in what you're creating, trust in yourself, trust in your work, trust in your talent, whatever you know um, realm of life we're talking about here. um, Perfectionism is the killer of creativity. It really is, because creativity is about humanity. Creativity is our humanity. Creativity is messiness. Creativity is life force. Creativity is everything. Creativity is raw and real and actually primal. And I think that, and I speak about this from a perspective of being someone who is an art dealer and who went to school for fine art and art history. I think that there is a really, really strong narrative in society of like creativity and art needing to be something that is perfectly aesthetically valued. Um, and that is actually like, that's one dimension of how we can understand art, but it's actually not creativity, right? That's one form of art, right? Like beautifully aesthetic films or dances, ballet. I think of ballet that's just perfectly curated and defined and disciplined. These are all forms of art that have their beauty to it. But being a creative person and the essence of creative energy itself actually has nothing to do with that. Not nothing, it is related, but it is a completely different dimension of what creation is. And so being a person who is embodied and who is like effervescent and alive in their creativity requires us to let go of outcome, to let go of categorization, to let go of all the boxes that we like to like fixate on, right? Because creativity is about expanding outside of the boxes, right? Creativity is innovation, and how can you innovate and expand outside of the box if you are constantly trying to fit something, fit your product, fit your work, fit your task into, or your process into a box? It doesn't work, right? So perfectionism is the killer. It's the antithesis of creativity. And I encourage you, you know, to examine, look into the different areas of your life and to ask yourself, where can I begin to loosen my grip on 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 the outcome? Loosen my grip on needing things to be perfect in a certain way, loosen the way that I work, the way that I practice as an artist, as a creative, as a person, right? As an executive, as a professional, whatever it is that you do on an everyday level. Like, where do we get so tightly gripped onto outcomes? And where can we actually allow ourselves to enjoy the process, right? And to just be in the process and to be experimental with it. That's actually where creativity comes alive. It's through the experimental element and process of the journey of creation. So that's a question that I want to leave you with this tip. It's, how can we create without judgment, create without perceptions of good or bad? How can we allow ourselves to sing and not hit a note and not hit a note perfectly, right? How can we allow ourselves to cook a meal and not have a recipe? How can we allow ourselves to um, paint a painting and have and allow it to go in the direction that it intuitively wants to go to and not have to, plan it to a T. And starting to play around with this in little ways in your life. Um, Loosen your grip, loosen your grip. And this will also just ultimately free so much energetic space in you, get you out of your mind, going back to number one, um, that will open up your creative channel. So that's number 5. Number 6 is I encourage you to dive into what I call automatic creation. So, stream of consciousness writing, stream of consciousness dancing, stream of consciousness art making, drawing, painting. Like Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way. You may know this book. If you don't, highly recommend as well. Such a good book, like really a manual for anybody who is really desiring to enhance their connection with art and creativity. But she talks about this concept called the morning pages, this practice that she does every single day. And through the book, she essentially invites you to do it every single day through, I think it's 8 weeks that her program and her process is. And it is a really powerful practice of essentially every morning, before you go out and work, before you really do anything, before you interact with the world, sitting down and just writing 3 pages of whatever is on your mind, whatever is on your heart, without filtering it, without stopping, without pausing, literally just writing whatever is coming up and letting your mind go. Again, the practice of letting your mind go. This is very important when it comes to creativity. All of it kind of weaves back into that, number 1. So morning pages, really powerful. Try that out, right? And it's also knowing that it's a consistent practice. The more you clear out okay, let's backtrack. Why the morning pages are so powerful is because it clears out the gunk, it clears out the energy, it clears out all of the mind chatter that is in the way of real divine creative energy flowing. And so when we can get that out at the beginning of our day, that allows our channel to be open. And I would say that it's also the same with dancing, right? Allowing yourself to intuitively dance. If you intuitively draw, right? Intuitively sing with just the intention of simply releasing, letting go of the shit and the weight and the noise. What happens? What happens in the body? What happens in your energy when you do that, right? It's a really, really great way to clear out what needs to be cleared out energetically, so that you feel connected with your body, you feel connected with your mind, and you're almost like I see, like, I get the image of like an onion. You're like peeling back all of the onions and the layers through writing, through release, that allow you to come back into center, which is your heart. So that's number 6. Number 7 is to feel your feelings and let them feel you. So, feeling your feelings, I'm all about this. We live in a world where there are a lot of stories, a lot of narratives of how emotions make you weak. And a lot of us have been trained or conditioned in some way to feel like certain emotions are bad, right? Anger is bad, or shame. I don't want to feel shame. We avoid guilt a lot of the times because, a lot of our feelings can be uncomfortable. A lot of our emotions can feel very big. And if we have never been taught how to actually hold and process emotion in a healthy way, and to, have a nervous system that is regulated and expanded enough to hold it, it's resilient enough to hold it, then we're going to be scared of emotions and we're going to avoid feeling our feelings. But like feelings are, I'm going to say emotions, interchangeable, but emotions are the language of the universe. Emotions are the bridge. It's the energetic bridge that brings the divine to our humanness, right? And our emotions, I truly believe, are our greatest teachers in this lifetime. They're our greatest like our greatest navigational tools that we literally have in our bodies that are with us every day, but that we just tend to avoid because we don't like them and we don't know how to handle them. But all feelings have a message, all emotions have a direction to them, they have a point to them. They tell you what, might feel aligned for you, what isn't aligned, what is a yes, what is a no, what violated my boundaries, what gets me excited, what makes me feel alive. All emotions are important guides. And emotions are also what fuel creativity, right? Emotions, they are that divine spark, that divine energy, that powerful energy that like makes you have so much to say, that makes you have so much to want to share, right? So much that you want to pour out because it's this energy that moves through you, emotions, and it's like, oh, right. So you even think about the way that we cry, we wail because there's just this energy that wants to release through. And so feeling your emotions, first of all, will clear out, again, some of that gunk that we carry, the energetic gunk, the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the emotions, the angers, all of the stuff that we haven't processed. To feel them is to process them. And when all of that stuff is stored in our bodies, it's going to clog our channel, it's going to clog our field, and we're not going to be able, we're going to be weighed down by those bricks. And when we're weighed down, well, we're tense. And so our channel isn't open, and we're not going to be in the state of thrival and self actualization that allows for creativity to touch us and for us to hold creativity. Because our nervous system just doesn't have the space for it. It's in survival. It's not going to be thinking about creating art. So, feeling your feelings is a way of clearing your energy so that your field can be open. But also, in the process of feeling your feelings, like, think about the fact that some of the best, and when I say best, I mean like the most moving, the most thought provoking, the most inspirational pieces of art have been created by heartbreak. What was created by heartbreak or through heartbreak was created through, big happenings, big feelings in the artist or in the collective at the time of, the art being created. And, you know, we think that we think that what makes art and what makes like a good piece of creative art, we think what makes it that is our intellect, right? Is the thought behind it, or is the fine details that go into it. And of course, those things are a part of what makes a great creative piece of art creative and artful. But ultimately, emotions fuel art, emotions fuel creativity. And if creativity is life force energy, so are emotions, and they're one and of the same. And so when we feel our feelings and we allow ourselves to be in our emotions, it is a great, great, great portal for us to explore creation, for us to learn how to alchemize energy into art, right? The process of feeling your feelings is the process of alchemy. And we can use creative expression as a very authentic, embodied way to support that alchemy. And, that's what art therapy is all about. That's what expressive arts therapy is all about. That's what somatic artistry and the method that I developed and teach. This is the core of it, right? It's feeling our emotions, tapping into this grounded divine part of our bodies and letting that flow through in creative expression. And it's such an empowering thing, right? It flips the concept of what we often see as, like, feeling our feelings. We go to therapy and we're like feeling our feelings. It can often feel like it can feel like negative, right? It can feel like heavy. And this is all to say, right, that when you can combine feeling with creative expression, it allows your emotions to have a channel and a purpose and a container at the other side of it. And it is also a deeply powerful transmutation that happens, that kind of actually amplifies the lessons that you get to learn from every emotion that is here for you as a guide. So, really important, feel your feelings and let yourself be creative in the way that you're alchemizing your feelings. And last thing I'll say with the feelings part is, also do the shadow work, right? Do the somatic emotional releases, letting yourself cry. And at the same time, you know, I've talked a lot about the feelings that we feel are challenging and that we avoid, but it's also like letting yourself feel happy, letting yourself feel excited, letting yourself feel um, inspired. And feeling your feelings is about feeling the whole spectrum of your life force energy. And that is every sensation, every emotion, every like bubble through your body. Feel it, feel it, feel it. That is going to bring you into the aliveness that is your life, which will then open up your creativity. So simple. Okay, number 8, reset and take breaks between tasks. So this is more of like a, practical one. But where I see a lot of creatives and artists get really stuck and blocked and stay in the stuck and blocked, and they're like, I'm just not feeling creative and I just wish I were like, I want to feel more creative. You're forcing creativity and you're trying to like, it's like if you're tense, again, if you're tense over a computer or you're tense over your notebook and you're trying to get it out, you're up in your mind and you're siphoning the flow. And if you're not taking pauses and you're not taking breaks and you're not letting your energy recalibrate, it's not going to work, right? And I know a lot of creatives and artists, maybe we're working on deadlines, right? Maybe there's something that we need to get out ASAP, whatever it is, for an employer or for yourself or for a client. But it's like when we are trying to force life force energy, it doesn't work because life force energy flows. It cannot be forced. When you force, you immediately siphon it. And so stop forcing it. You can't force it. How can you learn how to give yourself grace to take breaks, to take pauses, to take breathers when you're in a creative process? And this this also isn't just mutually this words. This isn't just exclusive to creating art or being in a creative process too, right? Like if you are, let's say, working, so you're an accountant, okay, like a banker, right? You could argue those jobs are not typically, conventionally, traditionally, quote unquote, creative, right? But again, creativity is not about making art. Creativity is life force energy. And it's, creativity is also tied to your problem solving skills, and it's tied to your capacity to innovate and to be flexible and to connect the dots, right? Are which are skills and spaces that are important in every single job that we do, and any kind of work that we do, really. And so, even if you are an accountant and you're at your desk and you're feeling stuck on a problem and you want to like feel more creative and open with what's happening, with like the way that you're, moving through it, take breaks, reset, let yourself pause. Sometimes pausing and resetting is the most productive thing we can do. We can get so caught up in like tunnel focus, like we think we're in the flow, but we're actually not. We're just pushing and pushing and pushing. The power of taking a step back, like going for a walk, doing a 10-minute meditation, getting into your senses, doing a somatic practice, drinking a kombucha. I'm going to take a sip of my kombucha right here. And just like giving yourself space in your mind and your body is going to just help recalibrate the energy. And that's really important. So that's number 8. Number 9 is to change the energy, change the environment that you're in. So, how to become more creative? We often think that that's something that it has to be about us, right? Like, how do I become more creative? Well, we remember that we are all beings that are living in environments, and we're very much shaped by the environments that we're in. Our energy fields are constantly responding to what is in our environment, right? Like whether an environment fuels us or drains us, whether something in our environment feels stagnant, whether it feels old, whether it's smelly or stinky, or whether it's just like there are all kinds of ways in which our environment, we can outgrow it. It's just, it doesn't fit with the way that our brain actually needs space and needs stimulation. We're all very different. And so when it comes to becoming more creative and feeling more tapped into your creativity, playing around with your space, like if you're feeling creatively blocked, it's like, where are you blocking yourself in your environment? Like, are you staying stale in a little cubicle, right? Like, can you go out to a coffee shop, go out for a walk, right? Can you, even if you have like a home office, or even in your living room, right? If you're feeling like things are just stale in your house, can you rearrange your furniture? Can you like change out the art, the posters in your house? Can you invest in um, I don't know, some little tidbits or little things that you can put into your space that refreshes the energy? Can you use a diffuser, right? Cleanse your space, Palo Santo, sage, like essentially like clean up and rearrange and explore different ways of activating your space so that your environment can actually activate you and make you feel like inspired and encouraged and excited, right? We can use our environment to fuel inspiration, right? If we can find inspiration in nature, we can also find inspiration in the spaces that we're in, and we can create that for ourselves. um, and that also, like, I feel like I haven't said that already, but like nature is our greatest source of inspiration, and nature literally breeds creativity. Nature breeds abundance. Nature is like the absolute essence of abundance. And so when we want to connect back with our creativity as well, this is like a tip 9.9.2. Get out into nature and like let nature inspire you. Get out of your mind into the body and let the colors, let the shapes, let the sounds, let the textures of nature like enliven you, right? And so think about your environments. Think about rearranging, putting yourself in new environments so that you feel inspired. All right. Number 10, our last one. Create no matter what. Create anyway. So I've said this already in the beginning, but creativity, as much as it is an energetic experience and it is a flow, right? It is simply a state. It is life force energy. At the same time, it's a muscle that we build. It's a muscle that we build to be able to hold space in a way that creativity wants to flow through us, right? So all of these tips have been ways that you can essentially create different structures and come back to different structures and systems internally and externally that allow for flow to move through. And so the practice of creation every day, we're doing it all the time. We're creating all the time. We're creating in the breaths that we take. We're creating in the conversations that we have with people. We're creating in the decisions that we make every day, right? Our lives are our greatest works of art. That's my signature quote. And it's something that it's so real and so true to me. Our lives are our greatest works of art, and we are the artists of our lives. We're the creatrixes. And we forget how powerful it can actually be to just become a little bit more intentional with how we are creating in our lives every day, right? So it's like, how intentional are we in the way that we create the moments in our lives, the experiences in our lives, with people, with ourselves, and being intentional with the energy through which we are living our lives, being in our lives, right? Creating our lives from a more spacious, open energy. We can always tap into a frequency by like calling it into our bodies. And also knowing that when we are in a dark place, when we are moving through stuff, hard stuff, right? When life is lifing, and sometimes when life is lifing, we are so contracted, we are stressed, we are scared, we are grieving, we are angry, whatever it may be. And that will naturally cause our bodies to contract, and it'll naturally cause us to maybe go into a protective or survival state. And like I said already, creativity can't live in survival, but we can actually still, in those spaces of darkness, in those spaces of emotions, right, going back to number 7, feeling your feelings, like even in darkness, even in the nothingness, even in the most painful of feelings where we don't feel like creating, sometimes those are the spaces where we want to have the devotion and the courage to create anyway, to create moments in your life anyway, right? To create art, whatever that means for you anyway, to move your body and to dance to a song anyway, to create poetry that allows you to alchemize what you're feeling anyway. I feel emotional even saying that. There's a lot of truth to that. And so, what are your favorite ways to self express, right? The little micro ways that you like to create every day. It doesn't have to be big, right? Creativity doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be, it's the smallest of things that, we feel creative joy through, right? Like I think about even like setting up a meal. This is the example that I have. I'm kind of hungry. And it's like, cooking and prepping a meal and like setting out a beautiful, like, setting out my plate and like having like beautiful dinnerware and like putting my home cooked food in a composition on my plate that like feels nourishing for me, that feels creative. Like that is sometimes one of the most like joyful creative things that I offer myself, and it's not a big deal, right? It's not me producing a masterpiece work of art, but it's me being creative. It's me experimenting. It's me playing. And where we can find that space for play and that space for openness and that space for experimentation in our everyday lives, no matter what, no matter how dull or stagnant or sad or, unhappy we are, like that is where creative energy seeps into our lives. That is how you become more creative. That is how you live in creativity. So allow yourself to be inspired by the little things and to explore it and to let creativity be a playful process, a playful conversation between you and your life. Oh my gosh, there was a lot there, right? So with this video, with this episode, you might want to rewatch this. You might want to take notes on this, come back to it, and know that it's a process. It's a cultivation, creativity. It's a coming home. And the more you embody these practices, the more you bring them into your life, you will start to feel more and more open. You'll start to feel more and more like sparks are flying. You'll start to feel more and more like you're able to connect the dots and innovate and problem solve effortlessly. And you'll start to feel more connected with the downloads that want to come through you. And that's what creativity is. And so I hope you've enjoyed today's video, podcast episode, wherever you're tuning in. And I love you so much. Thank you for being a part of this, beautiful conversation. Let me know how all of this landed for you. You can drop a comment and share what was your biggest takeaway, and also what are you going to be implementing. Which of these tips are you going to be taking home and implementing into your routine, into your daily habits. And I would love to hear how it all goes for you. So if you haven't already, please follow this podcast, follow, subscribe to Creatrix from Jade, the YouTube channel. I appreciate it so much when you guys comment again, also, but also share with me your biggest takeaways on DMs. And also when you share these episodes and share these videos with your friends and your family and your loved ones, it really helps me get my work out to more people so that I can help more people. And so, yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope this was so helpful. Bye.